The Incredible Hulk is a television series that ran for 5 seasons on the CBS network from 1977 to 1982. The series stars Bill Bixby as Dr. David Banner and Lou Ferrigno as the title character. To forgo the alliterative nature of Stan Lee's Bruce Banner, producer/director/writer Kenneth Johnson instead gave the lead character his own son's name, David. Banner's full name in the comics is actually Robert Bruce Banner, and Bruce can also be seen as the character's middle name on the television series as well. Rather than an atomic explosion creating the gamma-irradiated creature, Banner bombards himself with gamma rays in the more grounded setting of a scientific research facility. Characters such as Banner's research partner, Dr. Elena Marks from the series pilot, or psychologist Carolyn Fields would fill in for comic book love interest Betty Ross. Betty's father, General Thaddeus Ross, would not be the one hounding after the creature like he does in the comic books or previous animated series from Grant Trey Lawrence. However, investigative reporter Jack McGee, played by Jack Colvin, fills this niche rather nicely. Regardless of the divergences from the source material when adapting for television, the series retained the core of the Jekyll-Hyde premise and used it to create some rather compelling drama week after week.
David Banner was killed in a lab fire.
No.
Why haven't you told people you're alive?
Have you read much Robert Louis Stevenson?
Treasure Island.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
Besides the Jekyll-Hyde connections, there were also nods to Universal's Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster. Since the very beginning, inside the pages of the very first issue of The Incredible Hulk, the creature would indeed transform at dusk into the Incredible Hulk. Then at dawn, the Hulk would return to the form of Banner, much like the Wolfman's transformations from a full moon.
Why is he green, Grandfather?
To overcome the hatred. If he were yellow, or brown, or red like us, or even white, any of the colors of man, whichever he was, that people would think they were superior. So he is green, the only one, and that makes the rest of us the same.
The Frankenstein connection is particularly strong in the pilot episode, as the Hulk's interaction with a little girl is almost exactly like the monster's encounter with the flower petal girl. The only real difference is that the Hulk doesn't actually toss this little girl into the lake. She does that all on her own. Soon the girl's father arrives, only to misunderstand the situation and shoot the TV Hulk in the arm. Whereas the comic character is fairly impervious to bullets and other means of assault, on the television series the creature could still be hurt by conventional means. However, the creature did possess a heightened metabolism, which enabled his quick recovery from such injuries.
Okay, here we are. David?
Yeah?
When did you say you were shot?
I don't know, sometime early this morning.
Well, I'll tell you, this wound looks like it's been healing for about 3 days.
I don't know.
I mean, there's scar tissue formed over it. It's almost as if your body were working faster than usual.
Also taking cues from the television series The Fugitive, the creature on the series is mistakenly wanted for murder. Since the creature has been falsely accused, Banner is constantly a man on the run, ever seeking a cure to his condition. From one episode to the next, Banner is never in the same place twice. He goes from town to town and occupation to occupation, giving out fake surnames along the way. A typical trope of the TV series is to have an exceptionally gifted scientist like Banner generally excel while taking on a low-key occupation. But despite his attempts to stay out of the limelight, somewhere along the way, Banner's rage-fueled alter ego ends up being unleashed. Like the Gamma device in the pilot episode, by the 4th issue of The Incredible Hulk in the year 1962, Banner used gamma-ray bombardments to switch back and forth between his persona and that of the Hulk's. Eventually, by Tales to Astonish, issue number 59, in the year 1964, emotional stress becomes the trigger that transforms Banner into the Incredible Hulk. In a fashion all too relatable to those of us in the real world, life never quite seems to go Banner's way. He'll usually come across folks embroiled in some kind of trouble. Then some jerkwad like Rick Mason here, or Winston Zedmore, who certainly have it coming to them, will invariably set off the time bomb of anger that transforms the down-on-his-luck scientist into the 7-foot-tall, 330-pound green hulking creature.
Hulk not good with words. Hulk, write it down. Superman was that rarest of things. Every superhero owes him a debt of gratitude and homage.
While the comics usually contain the Hulk using varied forms of monosyllabic or even somewhat eloquent third-person speech, the Hulk on the television series could only express himself in animalistic growls and roars. I remember being really excited to hear that Lou Ferrigno would be providing the vocals for the Incredible Hulk on the 1990s animated television series.
Whoa! Whoa! Come on! Smell like roses, come on.
Of course, not too long after I saw the first episodes of the animated series, I found myself somewhat disappointed. This didn't sound like the Hulk I remembered from the live-action TV series as a kid at all. Interestingly enough, the growls of the Incredible Hulk were actually provided by the series' opening narrator, Ted Cassidy.
Dr. David Banner, physician, scientist, searching for a way to tap into the hidden strengths that all humans have. Then an accidental overdose of gamma radiation alters his body chemistry. And now when David Banner grows angry or outraged, a startling metamorphosis occurs. Is driven by rage and pursued by an investigative reporter.
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
The creature is wanted for a murder he didn't commit. David Banner is believed to be dead, and he must let the world think that he is dead, until he can find a way to control the raging spirit that dwells within him.
Cassidy is probably best known as the character Lurch on the Addams Family. As a kid, I naturally assumed that Ferrigno had made the growling noises as the Incredible Hulk when it was in fact Ted Cassidy. Now I realize that my disappointment came because I was expecting to hear the growl of Cassidy instead of Ferrigno. Ted Cassidy would provide roars of the Incredible Hulk until he passed away in 1979. After this point, animal growls were used for the Hulk's vocal intonations for a time, and eventually Charles Napier took over to provide the roars of the Incredible Hulk for the remainder of the series.
Can you talk? It doesn't hurt to ask.
The television movies The Incredible Hulk and Return of the Incredible Hulk are also considered part of Season 1 as the pilot and the episode titled Death in the Family. Death in the Family is notable as it would set the narrative structure for all the episodes that were to follow. David, insert alias last name that starts with the letter B here, is a drifter who wanders into town, usually after some kind of cure like the radiology unit at Everett Medical Center that he believes may cure him of his condition. David ends up taking a part-time job in order to help a young girl who is disabled and can no longer walk. Of course, a nefarious plot to poison the girl with incorrect medical treatment is discovered by Banner thanks to his extensive scientific knowledge. Thanks to foul play and attempts to rid themselves of both the girl and Banner, the schemers cause the creature to come out and foil their plans. Once the creature has been exposed and the attempt at a cure fails, Banner says his goodbyes so he can move on to the next town.
Man, I don't know what you are, where you came from, but I know where you're going.
The episode Final Round basically capitalizes on the success of Sylvester Stallone's Rocky movies, but instead we get Master's Sweep the Leg from The Karate Kid as the Incredible Hulk's poor man's version of Rocky Balboa.
Yeah. It can't always be like in the movies. Not everybody can be a Rocky.
The climax of the piece sees David Banner locked in a cage above the boxing ring, which ultimately leads to his alter ego breaking him out of his imprisonment. Believe it or not, the key moment in this episode reminds me of Toy Biz's Rage Cage, which has been made several times over throughout various Hulk toy lines.
Hi! Do you live here too? Have some more. Don't you have a cage or anything?
The Hulk Breaks Las Vegas features Banner working at a Las Vegas casino as a proposition player, or as a shill as they refer to him in the episode. He ends up stumbling into a hit-and-run attack on an investigative reporter who turns over condemning evidence that can expose mob ties and illegal activity. Even though the Hulk doesn't stay in Vegas for very long, longtime Hulk readers probably can't help but to think of Joe Fixit, which is the alias the Grey Hulk used when he operated in Las Vegas as a mob enforcer. Joe Fixit operated out of Las Vegas from issue 347 in the year 1988 until he's fired by his boss by issue 359 in the following year.
I've heard of guys losing their shirts, but that's ridiculous.
Probably the most infamous episode of the first season is the episode titled Never Give a Trucker an Even Break. This is because a substantial amount of footage from Steven Spielberg's film Duel is utilized throughout the episode as stock footage. Many television series in the late 1970s practiced the use of using existing film footage to add production value and cut costs at the same time. In fact, the first season episodes 747 and Earthquakes Happen also featured stock footage from existing films, but since they weren't made by Steven Spielberg, of course you hear very little about them. The episode 747 featured footage from the film Airport in 1975, starring Charlton Heston, and the episode Earthquakes Happen used existing footage from the 1974 Los Angeles disaster film titled Earthquake, also starring Charlton Heston.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Since Duel is owned by Universal Studios and the Incredible Hulk television series is also produced by Universal, there wasn't much the director could do legally, except to have a clause in future contracts stipulating that his later films would not be used as stock footage. Supposedly, Spielberg was pretty pissed, but probably not as pissed off as David Banner gets when a telephone booth eats his very last quarter.
Please deposit 25 cents for the first 3 minutes.
I don't have 25 cents!
By 1985, the Spielberg-helmed TV series, Amazing Stories, actually does the very thing the director took issue with all those years ago, and has the Incredible Hulk jump right out of a TV set in the episode titled Remote Control Man.
At least he could have Open the doors.
The beginning of the second season of the series opens with a feature-length episode titled Married. When released overseas as a film, the episode went by the title Bride of the Incredible Hulk. Banner travels to Hawaii to seek the aid of Dr. Carolyn Fields. He hopes her advanced techniques in using hypnotherapy to combat her own terminal illness can provide a cure for his own condition. The two physicians work side by side, hoping to alleviate the other's pain and suffering. A whirlwind romance ensues, and Carolyn and David are married. In the comics, the Incredible Hulk nearly married Jarella, the queen of the subatomic microverse in the Incredible Hulk issue 140. Jarella was created by famed science fiction author Harlan Ellison, and she was the perfect companion because she accepted both the Hulk as well as his alter ego, Robert Bruce Banner, unconditionally. Kyra, the Old Strong, marries the Incredible Hulk in the Marvel Comics storyline, which is later adapted into an animated feature titled Planet Hulk. After the Rhino crashes their first attempt at a wedding ceremony within the pages of Incredible Hulk, issue 124 in the year 1970, Robert Bruce Banner eventually marries his longtime sweetheart, Betty Ross, inside the pages of the Incredible Hulk, issue 319, by the year 1986. Tragically, just as Carolyn Fields succumbs to the fatal disease, shortly after she is married to David Banner, all of the women who have married the Hulk or Bruce Banner have been violently taken from them at one point or another. Jarella dies saving a young child inside the pages of Incredible Hulk, issue 205 by the year 1972. Betty Banner is poisoned by the Hulk's arch-rival, the Abomination, within the Incredible Hulk, issue 466 by the year 1998. Finally, Kyra, the Old Strong, perishes in an explosion meant to destroy her husband inside the pages of Incredible Hulk Volume 2, issue 105 by the year 2007.
I once heard a story about a man being chased by a tiger. He came to a cliff. He fell. But he grabbed a branch, and he just hung there, just out of reach of the tiger. And he looked down, and you know what he saw? Another tiger, waiting for him to drop. And then, he felt that the branch he was clinging to was coming out of the cliff by the roots. Now, while all this was happening, he noticed something. He noticed, growing in the cliff beside him, a single wild strawberry. And with his free hand, he reached out and picked it. And he ate it. And he thought to himself, what a wonderful strawberry.
The psychological treatment that Banner receives from Dr. Fields is akin to the ongoing treatment he would receive in the comic books from Doc Samson. Inside the pages of The Incredible Hulk, issue 227, Samson comes to the conclusion that the Hulk and Banner are, quote-unquote, two separate beings. By the year 1980, in the pages of Hulk magazine issue number 19, Banner considers the possibility that he may suffer from multiple personality disorder after attending a lecture by one Dr. Sheila Marks. I could only imagine that the television series Dr. Elena Marks and Dr. Carolyn Fields strongly inspired the psychologist from the story called Mastermind. Sheila even has the same last name as Elena. While the internet loves to point out that MPD syndrome is now referred to as dissociative identity disorder, the diagnoses, whatever the designation, explains Banner's various personality facets, such as the childlike green savage Hulk or the aggressive, pleasure-seeking id of the Grey Hulk. In the Season 2 episode, A Child in Need, David Banner seeks to help a young boy named Mark, who is plagued by an abusive father.
The Green Man, it was you.
Yes.
How?
It's rather difficult to explain.
You change?
Yes.
I wish I could. Sometimes they'd come in real handy.
In an interesting parallel, the comics themselves reveal Robert Bruce Banner's childhood to have been filled with similar abuse. The psychological and physical abuse first appears in Bill Mantlow's 1985 story titled Monster, from issue 312 of The Incredible Hulk. It's worth noting that some controversy surrounds the origination of this particular piece. In the 2003 August issue of the magazine Comic Book Artist, Barry Windsor Smith indicates that the seeds of this story came from a pitch he originally made to Marvel Comics back in the year 1984. Windsor Smith is currently developing the story as an independent project titled Monsters, which is completely unrelated to the Hulk.
But it's sometimes an indication of other problems.
Psychological problems.
Yes. It's associated with a tendency to split personality syndrome. Have you ever suspected anything like that?
The plot point of Banner's abuse as a child and his multiple personality disorder is later followed up to fantastic effect in Peter David's 11-year run on The Incredible Hulk. By issue 377, we see that the mental monster that torments all of Banner's dissociative identities is surprisingly revealed to be a tiny little man known as Brian Banner, the father of Robert Bruce Banner.
There's one.
One what?
One who is going bonkers over you, man. That's what.
Inscrutable.
That's what I thought.
You may recognize Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid as a chef who prepares Italian cuisine in the episode titled Stop the Presses. This episode also gives us an enhanced perspective when it comes to the daily comings and goings of Jack McGee and how he operates within his place of employ, the National Register. This is the first time we really get some insight into McGee's life and work outside of him chasing the Hulk. However, McGee does end up going all Craven the Hunter on the Hulk here, attempting to use a rifle to shoot the Hulk with tranquilizer darts. He very nearly succeeds, but is shot with his own darts before the Hulk smashes up his rifle. Unbeknownst to McGee, he is staring right at his quarry, but is too blurry-eyed to even know who it is.
What happened, Lee? The white cat and the black cat having fun in the back room.
In the episode Like a Brother, David Banner works at the resident car wash in a predominantly black neighborhood. While trying to stay out of the way of heavies like Ernie Hudson, who is part of the local drug trade, he befriends his fellow co-workers and seeks to help one co-worker's kid brother who suffers from a diabetic condition. Interestingly enough, the relationship between Banner, Mike, and Bobby would parallel the comic book Hulk's relationship with his sidekick of the day, Jim Wilson. Jim replaced Rick Jones, who was running around with guys like Captain Marvel at the time.
Get that whitey out of my sight.
Jim Wilson first appears within the pages of Incredible Hulk, issue 131, by the year 1970. 9 years later, it is revealed in the pages of Captain America, issue 230, that Sam Wilson, otherwise known as the superhero The Falcon, is Jim Wilson's uncle.
Man, now that's what I call a colored man.
The two-part episode Mystery Man has David Banner take a turn as an amnesiac after getting into a car accident while hitchhiking. A bruised larynx changes Banner's voice, and a bunch of bandages over his face makes him look like the DC Comics character the Unknown Soldier. So naturally, when Jack McGee finally catches up to a John Doe in the Santa Fe hospital, they have a pretty cool rival fusion in order to recover the amnesiac Banner's memory, as well as track down the creature. We get to learn a lot more about the inner workings of McGee's character during his time with John Doe.
Why do you want the Hulk so badly?
Because the Hulk means escape. Get it? It's the biggest story of the 20th century. You could pick up a Pulitzer for journalism. More important, I could get off of the register. I could stop banging out pap for the supermarket masses. I could get my column back, write real stories, important stories. I could be somebody.
And what happens to the Hulk?
I don't... Probably just what you said would happen. My paper bleeded dry. They'd have the world's biggest freak. They'd pull out all the stops, all the hoopla, the exploitation, the whole King Kong sideshow.
But the Hulk saved your life. You told me so yourself. Don't you think you should help it?
Yes. But you gotta choose. That's all life is, you know, my friend. Just choosing. It's you or the other guy.
What do you expect?
What do you want me to do, John? Find the Hulk and walk away? You're kidding.
Under duress, John Doe eventually transforms into the Hulk right in front of McGee in order to save his life. Although most of John Doe's memory recall comes from stock footage from previous episodes, it brings us a terrific performance by Bill Bixby and a renewed passion from McGee to hunt down and capture the Hulk.
There is a man out there who physically changes into a monster. Now, I don't care if you believe it or not. I know that it's true.
I know it's true, I know it's true, I know it's true.
I'll find you yet, John Doe. You'll believe me then.
Jack the King Kirby, who co-created the Hulk, has a cool little cameo as a police sketch artist in the episode No Escape. Hulk's other co-creator, Funky Flashman, Stan Lee, never actually makes a cameo in the original television series run, but he could be seen as a juror in the 1989 television movie The Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
Ding, ding, ding. There is, in fact, a belt that alters density and gives the wearer super strength.
Well, do we have it?
Alas, Jacob Kurtzberg's belt is not currently in stock.
Jacob who?
Kurtzberg, a.k.a. Jack the King Kirby, created
comic book stuff. Okay, got it.
Season 3 features our only glimpse into David Banner's family tree in the episode titled Homecoming. We're introduced to David's sister, Helen Banner, who is portrayed by Star Trek The Next Generation's Dr. Pulaski, who, by way of coincidence or typecasting, is also a doctor. The two siblings are extremely close, even though Helen thought David was dead this entire time. There were plans for Helen Banner to return in Season 5, though that never materialized.
And I said, besides, I got a great idea for opening the fifth season. I said, I want to do a show where David Banner's sister, whom we had set up in one of the earlier episodes, is dying of a congenital blood disease. And the only thing that can save her is a transfusion from a sibling. Now, what happens when Hulk blood gets into somebody else? And I said, and I'm telling you, America will tune in droves.
Since Bruce Banner in the comics has no sister, the closest thing he has to a brother-sister relationship is with his cousin Jennifer Walters. Fans of Marvel Comics also know the character came to be the Savage She-Hulk through a blood transfusion as well. In 1991, there were plans to create a She-Hulk television series with Brigitte Nielsen, but the only thing that materialized out of those plans were some promotional images of Nielsen as She-Hulk.
You spring up from the dead after 3 years and give us nothing. We've always done that. You can't just drop in and out of our lives.
You don't understand.
Why did you even bother to come back here?
I couldn't spend another Thanksgiving alone.
David.
Helen is helping her and David's estranged father, D.W. Banner, keep the Banner family farm afloat by combating a crop-killing horde of pests. It's only fair to point out that David Banner's family history is addressed on the television series long before Robert Bruce Banner's backstory is in the comics as a child abused by his own monster of a father, Brian Banner. On the television series, Banner's hometown is Trevorton, Grail Valley, but in the comics, he grew up in Dayton, Ohio. In flashback sequences, we learn of David's mother, called Elizabeth Banner, while in the comics, Bruce's mother is named Rebecca Banner. The common point for both versions is the estrangement between father and son.
Don't go! Don't go! Please, Mom! It's your fault! Your fault! Make her come back! It's your fault!
A young David Banner blames H.W. for Elizabeth's death, much in the same fashion that Robert Bruce Banner would for Brian's murder of his mother Rebecca in the comics. While the television series makes it clear that the falling out between father and son isn't caused by uxoricide or physical abuse, there are some family issues to address that make for a touching and fascinating episode in an overall lackluster Season 3.
You'd better go, David. You'll be seen. Please, David, go.
DW, are you okay?
David, please go. Go!
Well, I think Lou Ferrigno's great as the Hulk. It's also worth mentioning that one time I met the man at the Los Angeles Comic Book and Science Fiction Convention. He did come off as a little bit disgruntled that I only wished to get his autograph instead of a copy of the book he was selling at the time. If you haven't already, you can hear a more detailed account of when I met the star of the Incredible Hulk in my autograph collection video log.
May I have an autograph, please? Oh, you are a big one. Believe it or not, I like big men.
If you have any knowledge of the life and times of Bill Bixby, the Season 3 episode The Psychic is both ominous and bittersweet. Bill Bixby's first wife, Brenda Benet, plays the title character Annie Kaplan. Any physical contact or interaction gives Annie an impression of the future, which is how she comes to discover David Banner and the creature are one and the same. Benet's character becomes a recluse after blaming herself for a young boy's death in a criminal investigation when she reads a psychic vision incorrectly.
By the time the police gave up on my lead, it was too late. It was a little boy.
By the time this episode aired, Bixby and Benet were already divorced, and a short while later they lost their son. Benet committed suicide not long after.
I was going to kill myself.
The unsettling parallels don't stop there either. Bixby brings in another excellent performance when David Banner believes he's killed a young boy as the Hulk. Banner is so distraught by the notion that he plans to commit suicide as penance for his perceived actions as the creature. When Bruce Banner attempts suicide by jumping from the Empire State Building in the pages of Incredible Hulk, issue 467, he automatically transforms into the Hulk before the point of landing. Just some food for thought on the possible outcome of what may have happened if David Banner went through with the decision to jump.
The power of the creature has gone beyond the courts. I must be the judge and the jury.
Of course, the Hulk is wrongly accused, and Jack McGee actually tracks down the real killer. After the Hulk takes down the true killer, Annie and Banner say their final farewells. The intimation is that when Annie hugs Banner goodbye, she sees a not-so-happy future in store for the man. Me, I think she just saw how crappy the Hulk's demise in the Death of the Incredible Hulk TV movie turned out.
Goodbye, David.
The two-part Season 4 opener, titled Prometheus, has David Banner exposed to a gamma-irradiated meteorite with unforeseen effects. David is stuck mid-transformation and manages to retain his skin color and some limited form of intelligence. While not an exactly identical situation, The Incredible Hulk, issue number 6 from the year 1963, has a similar freaky gamma-ray transformation, where upon becoming the Hulk, the Green Behemoth still has Bruce Banner's head.
My God. My God. It's never happened like this. Never before. What's wrong?
Also seeing Banner retain some of his faculties reminds me of what I like to call the Secret Wars era Hulk. The first time Banner would become the Hulk but retain his full intelligence takes place within the Incredible Hulk issue 123 by the year 1970. While the procedure from Reed Richards turns out to only work for a limited time frame, by the Incredible Hulk issue 272, increased exposure to gamma rays led to this version of the Hulk on a more permanent basis. Thus, the Hulk, with Banner's brain, would participate in Marvel's Secret Wars rather than the savage, dim-witted Hulk most readers at the time were used to.
I'm still not normal.
No, you're not. That meteor, that rock, they brought some of it here. It must be that you're still too close.
The great thing about this two-parter from Kenneth Johnson is that it defies expectations and takes you beyond the traditionally established formula that he set up all the way back in Death in the Family. Not only does Banner have a huge problem, which was par for the course, but the Hulk himself has a big-ass problem. The Hulk is actually captured for the first time in the series by a clandestine organization called Prometheus. The microwave heat waves that are used as a holding area for the Hulk appear to take a page from the design of the Phantom Zone from the first two Superman films. The huge double-door entrance to Prometheus's secret base within a mountain reminds me of the Mount, mountain headquarters of the Pantheon organization from later issues of The Incredible Hulk in the 1990s. In fact, the first member of the Pantheon we're introduced to in the comics is the tracker called Prometheus. McGee manages to sneak his way into Prometheus's secret underground headquarters so that the audience still has the perspective of an everyman on the journey, and even manages to play the role of negotiator after the Hulk escapes by smashing through the floor.
All I do know is this, that in the 3 years that I have been chasing him, this is the first time he has come close to being captured or contained.
In the episode King of the Beach, Lou Ferrigno plays a dual role as, of course, the Hulk, but also as a restaurant cook turned weightlifter Carl Molino. While I can appreciate giving Ferrigno the opportunity to showcase his triumphs and background in a standalone episode, it does tend to come at the expense of Banner's pre-established ways and habits. I mean, if this were any other episode, McGee would have caught up with Banner by now, but conveniently, McGee is nowhere to be found in this episode, so Banner can continue to assist Molino while he trains for the big contest being held on Venice Beach. Also, with so many bodybuilders in a single episode, it does tend to break up the illusion that is the Incredible Hulk. In this episode, I tended to think of the character Carl even during the Hulk out scenes.
You're right. I'm just not used to being treated like this. I really appreciate your friendship, but you still can't know what it's like to be a freak.
Personally, I think it's easier to have suspension of disbelief that the 6'5" Ferrigno is a 7-foot-tall muscle-bound behemoth like the Hulk when he's not standing next to a bunch of men of similar stature.
Hey, stop that! You're ruining it! Stop that! You're ruining it! Go away! Go on! You wrecked everything! Go on! Go away! Go on! Thanks a lot.
Outside of reprising his role as the Hulk in animation and later television films, Ferrigno cameos as a security guard in both the 2003 Hulk film as well as the 2008 Incredible Hulk film. He would also take on the role of Hercules in the Universal film franchise, appear as the evil slave master on the sci-fi superhero series Black Scorpion in the episode Virtual Vice, and portray the character Mog on the syndicated Conan television series in the episode The Three Virgins.
This is it?
Look behind you. Ain't that Lou Ferrigno? What? Sucker gets him every time.
The series definitely tried to shy away from the Hulk's comic book roots by avoiding the use of any popular supervillains such as the Maestro or the Abomination. I'd say the closest the series came to featuring a supervillain is in the two-part episode titled The First. David Banner is on the trail of Dr. Jeffrey Clive, who he hopes may have a cure to his condition.
He told me that his work had led to something terrible, but he assured me that he'd been able to cure it.
Cure it? Those were Dr. Clive's words.
Just before he died, he completed a cure.
However, upon tracking down the rumors surrounding the Clive house and a previous green creature, Banner instead meets Clive's old assistant named Del Fry. The two characters are named after the actors from Universal's Frankenstein film, Colin Clive and Dwight Fry, who played Dr. Frankenstein and his assistant Fritz. The first serves as a fitting tribute to movie monsters of the 30s and 40s. It turns out Fry, and not Clive, was the original inheritor of the metamorphic creature curse.
It wasn't Clive who was the thing. It was me. He did it to me. I was just like you.
Clive may have cured Fry of the metamorphosis, but unlike Banner, he's both an unstable and selfish personality who is responsible for all the foul play surrounding the household. Fry wants the power of the First again, regardless of the cost to others.
You're strong, you're healthy, you've got the strength. Oh, how good it was. I haven't forgotten, and I want it back.
You want to ruin your life? It's ruined mine.
My life is ruined already. I've had enough. I want the strength again.
Eventually, Fry gets his way by the conclusion of Part 1 and again becomes his own creature. The First, unlike the Hulk, revels in abusing his power. The Hulk would generally take his aggression out on inanimate objects and is usually seen gently petting a variety of animals, whereas the First goes on a destructive rampage, even disrupting the local wildlife. After Fry reverts to his human form, Banner can't even convince him to cure himself of his own creature.
But you better not do anything against me. You know, when I get mad, what I can do.
A note of interest is that Dick Durock, who went on to play Swamp Thing in all the live-action incarnations of the character to date, played the creature aspect of the First. The climax of the episode sees the First destroying Banner's last opportunity to cure himself of the creature. Then it's an all-out superhero on supervillain slugfest, or an old-time monster movie melee brawl between the First and the Incredible Hulk. This makes this two-parter the final must-see episode of the series, in my opinion. Whether you place the blame on the network executives or the union strike of 1981 for the show's premature demise, the fifth season is notable mainly for having only 7 episodes. Many speculate that some of the remaining shows were likely leftovers from the fourth season, which was cut short at only 18 episodes. When watching all the episodes in the proper sequence, the series unfortunately tends to go out with a whimper rather than a bang. Other than some CDC-looking dudes who could pass as members of AIM, the final episode, A Minor Problem, is relatively uneventful. Basically, the episode has all the so-called intrigue of the Resident Evil series, with E. coli substituted for zombie outbreak.
Yeah, I know it's kind of hard to believe, but if you could see the damage down there, you'd think a tank plowed through.
Now, this green man you mentioned, he was driving a tank?
No, of course not. He's more of a creature than a man. He's enormous, tremendous power. He's called the Hulk.
Hulk?
Hulk.
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 Close enough.
While many of the encounters between David Banner and Jack McGee would result in near misses, McGee would get closer and closer to his quarry all throughout the run of the series. In fact, the episode Proof Positive focuses entirely on Jack McGee and is notable for being the only episode that doesn't feature series lead Bill Bixby. There is also a pretty lame Evil Double episode called Broken Image, where a crook by the name of Mike Cassidy is coincidentally a picture-perfect mirror image of David Banner. The episode does stand out because it is the first and only time Jack McGee considers the possibility that the man he is searching for is actually Dr. David Banner.
God. Banner. Alive.
Banner, of course, is quick enough on his feet to feign the gruff, no-nonsense personality of the criminal Cassidy to throw McGee off his trail. Unfortunately, what probably should have been saved for a key moment of discovery in the series is later just swept under the rug, with the meeting chalked up to the criminal lookalike Cassidy. Then McGee thinks he's finally caught up to the Hulk in the two-part episode The First, but instead finds Del Fry, who is an evil version of the Hulk. After that, McGee takes a Hulkbuster bullet for the Hulk in the Bill Bixby directed episode Bring Me the Head of the Hulk. Okay, well, it's really a rocket, and McGee's car takes the hit, but you get the idea. Then the Hulk would return the favor, catching McGee as he falls off a second-story building in the episode Interview with the Hulk. Of course, not every encounter with the Hulk is solid gold, as the poorly crafted episode Behind the Wheel reveals. In this episode, McGee's encounter with the Hulk is simply played up for laughs, which is something that is almost never done on the series. There is, however, a really awesome confrontation between McGee and the Hulk at a costume ball in the episode titled Equinox. After the Hulk reverts back into David Banner, McGee corners him inside a closet full of costumes where the confrontation continues verbally.
3 years. Don't move. It's over, John. Take off the mask.
Mr. McGee. Mine is not a happy life. All I want to do is get rid of the creature. Why won't you leave me alone?
From the beginning, no one's believed me. You're my vindication.
And you'll be destroying me.
I will be stopping an uncontrollable and dangerous force.
The creature saved your life more than once, you know that.
The creature is also responsible for taking lives. I was there at the laboratory fire. He killed David Banner and Elena Marks.
No. No. Helena died of the fire, not the creature. He tried to save her.
You'll have every chance to prove that in a court of law.
Between CBS's desire to cut costs and the union strike in 1981, any real chance of giving Jack McGee and David Banner's story any kind of satisfactory conclusion would ultimately never materialize. Triangle is the last episode where Jack McGee would make an appearance on the series, and this left the intrepid reporter still remaining in the dark about the Hulk's alter ego being Dr. David Banner. The show's creators indeed had plans for Banner to eventually find a cure in a 2-hour finale where David Banner would be put on trial for the death of Elena Marks, as well as the property damages caused by the creature. Personally, I think it'd be kind of cool if Marvel Comics asked series creator Kenneth Johnson to write up some scripts for a Hulk Season 5 series finale comic done in the style of books sort of like X-Men Forever. We could be given the opportunity to see David Banner's trial that might have been had the series progressed to a natural conclusion. Even though one of the later television movies from 1989 is technically called The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, the trial is only a dream sequence, and Banner's conflict with McGee is never properly resolved.
You should leave him alone, Mr. McGee.
I can't, Miss Collins. No matter what you think, no matter how gentle this man may have seemed to you, the Hulk is a very real danger. And I will not leave him alone.
Many actors from one of my favorite science fiction television series, V, frequently appear on The Incredible Hulk. This, of course, makes perfect sense, as both The Incredible Hulk television series and V, the original miniseries, were developed by creator Kenneth Johnson. So many great actors appeared throughout The Incredible Hulk's 5-year run, which I think is a testament to series creator Kenneth Johnson, who, from his DVD commentary and interviews, really seems like an actor's director and someone who would be a great pleasure to work with.
I'd like to thank you. This has been, bottled up inside me for such a long time. It's such a relief to be able to tell someone that understands technically and still has sensitivity and compassion.
While series creator Kenneth Johnson didn't take a whole lot of inspiration from the comic book source material, it is fair to say that his work on the television series certainly had a great deal of influence on the comics themselves. Initially, there may have been only minor promotional tie-ins, but the Lonely Man format found its way into the comic book soon enough. Marvel first began letting readers know that this particular comic series featured Marvel's TV sensation on the covers of The Incredible Hulk from issues 227 to 249. Hulk magazine applied the Lonely Man format to its storyline and also touted The Incredible Hulk as Marvel's TV smash. The magazine would feature exclusive interviews with stars Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. Issue 14, A Cure for Chaos, has Dr. Robert Bruce Banner using the alias David Bixby in a nod to the television series. The 24th issue featured a cover with Lou Ferrigno's likeness as the Hulk, as well as a short piece on the extensive makeup process that turned Ferrigno into the rampaging Hulk. Reporter Jack McGee may have never appeared in the Hulk comic books, but longtime Hulk comic book scribe Peter David includes him in the Hulk novel titled What Savage Beast. Also, a syndicated newspaper strip ran from 1978 until 1982, which shared the same established background and Lonely Man format viewers found on the television series. In the newspaper strip, Banner went by the first name David, just like in the television series. About 3 months after the live-action series was canceled, The Incredible Hulk would return as an animated television series on NBC.
I saw that beast you turned into, David! Unbelievable! What was it? How do you do it? It was magnificent, David! Magnificent! Make it come back! You hear me, David? Make it come back! Make it come back.
This TV show is how I knew who and what the Incredible Hulk was as a kid. My earliest Hulk comic book was actually a reprint book I picked up while traveling abroad. This issue may have been in a language I couldn't read or understand, but as a kid, I didn't care much. Later in life, I would learn that the original cover came from The Incredible Hulk, issue 225, and the story from issues 105 to 107 of the very same series. The proof that I was very taken with the show is right here in a photo where I have my Hulk shirt on while touring Greece. It's true that the show doesn't have a whole lot in common with the comic book source material, but the drama is both engaging and compelling. Bill Bixby turns in wonderful performances week after week, and the terrific musical score by Joe Harnell is extremely touching and moving. There have been a variety of live-action comic book properties that attempt to be firmly rooted in a setting with a realistic tone and nature. Whether it's the X-Men film franchise from Bryan Singer, or the incredibly successful Dark Knight from Christopher Nolan, The Incredible Hulk predates them all. Kenneth Johnson may have made adjustments from the comics, but they were made to the point where he and his viewers could take the Hulk seriously. And I'd say taking these characters seriously is something that all fans cherish.
Told you I'd make it.
We're all gonna make it.
I don't have